Wow, is this an English test or is a brain test? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Juliet. In today's video, we'll basically be looking at repeat sentence. So someone asked me that question recently. Say, hey Juliet, is this supposed to be an English test or it's supposed to be a brain test? I don't know what that means. But what I want to talk about today is repeat sentence. I want you to sit tight and let's just talk about it, okay? Repeat sentence is the second task in the PTE speaking module. Now, it's a very important task because it doesn't only contribute scores to the PTE speaking alone. It contributes huge score to your PTE listening module. Yes, over 40 marks. I'm just going to be adding the example or the sample of the mock test I did so that you would see it. Yeah, that is how important this task is. In fact, it's one of the most important tasks in the PTE exam. Now, someone called me up recently and said, wait, Juliet, I tried doing that repeat sentence you told me about. Is that supposed to be an English test? This PTE, this repeat sentence, is supposed to be an English test or is a brain test? I don't know what that means, okay? But what I want to say here is it's not a difficult task. Oh, please don't crucify me yet. Pearson test of English takers. Now, PTE repeat sentence, for me as a tutor, is not a difficult task if you have some basic understanding of what is expected of you. Now, what happens here basically is you would hear a sentence and you're supposed to repeat exactly what you heard. Now, people say, oh, don't try to copy the accent, don't try to just be normal. In fact, let me even read something that the official Pearson score guide says here. Official Pearson score guide says something. It says, you hear different accents in the test, but you do not need to copy the accent of the speaker. I mean, that's funny. Now, if you do not copy the accent of the speaker, somehow you may miss out on the stress. I mean, the particular word they are putting stress on. Okay, now let's just play one example and see what I mean.
When I study, I will underline all the main points in my notes.
Okay, so you heard that accent there. It says, when I study, I will underline all the main points in my notes. Now, nothing stops you from mimicking the accent if you want. Yeah, it's not like if you don't mimic the accent, you're not going to get the score. But in my opinion, you should be able to mimic the accent, because if you mimic the accent, you'll be able to put stress on the words that need stress. That's a free tip I've shared with you today in this video. So these are the things that you need to know. Actually, this task is not difficult. If you can concentrate, if you can really listen, not just with your ears, I tell my students, you can also listen with your heart. Because if you listen, I mean, if you really pay close attention, you'll get exactly what was said. Even if you miss out one or two words, I mean, you can still get all the scores for the content. Now, this brings me to another point of this task, which I'm going to be talking about now, which is scoring. How are you scored for this task? You're scored for content, 3 marks, oral fluency, 5 marks, and pronunciation, 5 marks. Your content is the words that make up that sentence. For instance, this one says, when I study, I will underline all the main points in my notes. That's the content of this particular question. Now, if you get everything, you get 3 marks. Now, I'm going to be adding a clip here. Yeah, you can see that clip. That clip says here, if you get about 50% of what was said, you get 2 marks. So that means if I get 70% of what was said, 65% of what was said, 69% of what was said, I'm still going to get 3 marks for that. Okay, then if I'm able to get 50% of what was said, I'm going to get 2 marks for my content. The only time where I get 0 is when I don't say anything, or when you don't say anything, that's when you get 0. So content, you're giving 3 marks if you get about 60% and above of what was said. You also be scored for oral fluency. Now, the oral fluency, I'm not going to be telling you what the oral fluency is here. Yeah, because I want you to, if you really need to know what the oral fluency is, let me know. Find out from me on Instagram. Then the pronunciation, if you're able to pronounce the words like native English speaker, like this, if they say something like international, you'll be able to say it like that, you know, popular, education. If you're able to pronounce those words that way, then you're able to get the 5 marks for the pronunciation. So that means that the oral fluency and the pronunciation will give you more marks in this task. Okay, so that is how you're scored for this task. Now, I'm going to be sharing certain tips that can help you ace this task. Tip number 1, it says try to listen for plural or singular forms of words. Now, this example I first shared here says, when I study, I will underline all the main points in my notes. That's very tricky. So if you say notes, that wasn't what was said. Notes was actually said. Main points was what was said, not points. So now if you say, I will underline all the main points in my notes, you haven't gotten those ones. Okay, so you have to listen out for when they use plural form of words and when they use singular form of words. That's why I say paying attention, it's very important. You have to put aside all distraction, everything that wants to make you not to pay attention, because this task, you have about 10 to 12 of these tasks, so there's need for you to concentrate. If you concentrate, you'll be able to get out all your scores from this task. Remember, when I did this task, it contributed about 40 marks to my PTE listening, so it's a very important task. Okay, now the second tip I have here is try to break the sentence into parts. Yeah, even official score guide from the Pearson says something like he say, think of the words as a set of phrases or chunks within the sentences. So that means that if you break down the words, for instance, this one says, when I study, I'll underline all the main points in my notes. So for me, I'm going to put it this way. When I study, that's one part. I will underline all the main points, that's two parts, in my notes. So that's the way you can break it down. If you break it down that way, it will be easier for you to memorize it and repeat exactly what you heard. Now, another point I have here that is very important: when you don't get all the words that were said, please do not be hard on yourself. Remember, I have just explained something here earlier on, that even if you don't get every of the word that was said by the audio, you can still get 3 marks for content. That means that if they say you get 50 marks, you get 2 marks if you give 50% of the word. That means even if I say 75% of the word, if I say 65% of the words, or even 60% of the words, I can still get 3 marks. So don't be too difficult on yourself. Now, there's an official mock test I did from the Pearson owners of the exam. I made some mistakes because I think at the point where I was doing that particular task, I had kids running around. So I made several mistakes. I didn't get exactly everything that was said. I think above in virtually all the repeat sentence, but I still saw that it contributed over 40 marks to my PTE listening, because I was just trying to see exactly how much mark repeat sentence can contribute to PTE listening. So do not be too hard on yourself when you don't get all that was said. Another thing I want to say this morning is practice, practice, practice. Don't practice 10 and say, oh, I'm good to go. No, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Now, the reason why I said that this task is easy, probably because I've been a PTE tutor for over 4 years now. Okay, maybe that's why it's easy for me. It's not one of the tasks that I'll be stressing myself out about, I mean, it's not so difficult for me. So what will bring you to this point is practice over 200, practice 300 if you really want to pass. If you're having difficulty in memorizing this task, try to break it into chunks. And how would you do that? Is in practicing. When you keep practicing and practicing, breaking it into chunks and paying attention, following every tip I have shared here with you, then it will be easy for you to get your score. Remember, if you're struggling in the PTE listening, this task is one short task that can boost your score in the PTE listening. Hold on, before I forget, one very important tip I've always been meaning to share on the repeat sentence, I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. It says here, if you wait for more than 3 seconds, your recording will stop. So this is one task that you wouldn't hear a beep after the audio finished talking. So what you should do is, once the audio finished saying whatever it has to say, you just wait for 1 second, then you speak. If you wait for more than 3 seconds, like what I'm reading for you from the official score guide of the Pearson, the owners of the exam, then it says here, if you wait more than 3 seconds, recording will stop. Your recording will actually stop. That means that even if you speak after the 3 seconds, it won't be counted as pass for you. Okay, so that's one important thing I want to tell you today. Now we're going to look at some examples, maybe 1 or 2 examples, just to add to what we have done. That maybe that's going to help you as you prepare for this task.
It seems that science can satisfactorily explain why the universe still exists.
So you heard that one. It says that it seems that science can satisfactorily explain why the universe still exists. That's what was said. So after that, you should be able to click on next. But let's look at the answer. Yeah. So he said it seems that science can satisfactorily explain why the universe still exists. Well, I just hope that these examples I have cited today and these tips I have shared and the little explanation I have done is going to help you to ace this task on your exam day. Now, why I'm taking my time to explain this task in this way is because it contributes a huge score to your PTE listening. It imparts PTE listening so much. So take this task seriously, take the tips I have shared seriously, and you're going to get a good score here. Now remember to follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. Find me there, send me DM, ask me any question you want to ask me, and be sure I'm going to respond to you. Find me there at English_prep class and on Facebook at English Prep Class. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. I'll see you in my next video.